Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Halloween Monster Candy Bucket, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. To make this pattern, you'll need a USK hook, 6.5 millimeters, or whatever size gets you to gauge. You'll also need 300 yards of Bernat Blanket O'Go. Here you can see one of these O'Gos here. That means you'll need 2 of those to make this pattern. I used the agave colorway to make this one. You'll also need 2 large buttons, although these are optional. You can decorate your candy bucket however you like. I also do recommend that you have stitch markers as well as your usual crochet supplies, scissors, and a yarn needle. First, let's talk about the yarn used to make the Halloween Monster Candy Bucket. You can see here that Bernat Blanket O'Go comes with 3 shades, and I've used all 3 to make this bucket. When you're making this bucket, you can follow the plan that I included with the written pattern, or you can choose to use the colors in whichever order you like. You'll see here on the written pattern, I have marked out which of the colors inside the O'Go match with the pattern. But again, you can use them in whatever order you like. Make your monster bucket completely custom for you. So to use these O'Gos, since we use these on different parts, you can either start at one end and just crochet the different parts as you reach them, working from the inside or the outside, however you like. Or you can take the different colors apart and use them separately in the order that the pattern is written. However you like to do it is completely up to you. If you do choose to pre-separate the colors of your Bernat Blanket O'Go, it's very simple to do. All you need to do is find where the 2 colors meet and carefully pull them apart. I find with this one, because it's such a textured yarn, it helps to give it just a little bit of a wiggle or maybe a twist as you pull. The texture that makes this yarn so squishy also makes it grip onto itself pretty good. So as you can see, they're starting to come apart. You can see how a lot of the yellow was hidden inside the orange. So if you see a skein that seems to be predominantly one color, it's because the other colors are hidden inside. So you can simply pull those apart, find where they match up, give them a little snip, and you'll have your 2 colors separated. And here you can see our finished Halloween Monster Candy Bucket. Not really meant to lay flat on the table, so it looks a little funny right now. It usually, of course, is meant to sit up like a bucket or a basket. But I wanted to show you that this pattern is made in 2 parts. You can make them in either order. Until assembly, it doesn't really matter what order you go in. So again, if you're using that Bernat Blanket O'Go, you can work through the skein or take it apart so that you can do the different colors as you like. You can see here, I used the darkest color for the underbelly and under tentacles. And then I used the 2 lighter colors for the top of the basket or bucket, the handle, and of course the bottom half and the tentacles here on top. I also used these 2 large coconut buttons for my stash for eyes, but this is again a chance for you to personalize your project. Use whatever colors, whatever buttons you like. You could add little other buttons underneath for tentacle suckers. You could create a whole face. Whatever you like to do with your bucket is really up to you. Now, if you're familiar with other Moogly patterns, you might think these tentacles look a little bit familiar, and indeed they are. This pattern is based off of the octopus squish, although that one has some shaping to the top and this one is worked straight. It's also similar to the Halloween tentacle candy bowl that I designed as well. So within the octopus squish tutorial video, I do demonstrate how to make the tentacles and the underbelly. And then, of course, we just put them together and single crochet through those layers to connect the 2. So today, I just want to hit a few of the highlights and finer points of the Halloween Monster Candy Bucket. So now let's start with the top of the bucket, where we start crocheting from the top of the bucket down. So you'll want to pick the color that you want at the top of your bucket and that you'll be using for your handles. Of course, you can add a different colored handle if you like. But we're going to start here with a slip knot on our hook. And I've also got a stitch marker here at the ready because I'm going to be working in spirals. So rather than joining, we're just going to keep crocheting around and around. And it's very easy to lose your place. But if you have a stitch marker in the first stitch of each round, you'll be all set. So we're going to start with a foundation single crochet. So we chain 2, and then I am going to insert my hook in the back hump of the first chain I made, the one closest to the slip knot, yarn over, pull up a loop. That loop will be the chain at the bottom of our first stitch here. So then I yarn over and pull a loop up through the chain and yarn over and pull through 2 to finish the first foundation single crochet. In fact, the only foundation single crochet. From here on out, we're going to work foundation half double crochet stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and put that first stitch marker right in that first stitch right there. So now that one is marked. And then we continue by making 55 foundation half double crochets. So let's make a few of those together. Now, since it's a half double crochet, I need a yarn over first, and then I'm going to go under the bottom 2 loops right there, underneath that very first stitch, the foundation single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, and I want to go ahead and take my time to pull that loop up nice and high. You can see here it's a little longer than the other 2 loops, but it's now nice and straight and even with those. So we yarn over and pull through just that first loop because that was the chain at the bottom of our stitch. And now we yarn over and pull through all 3 to finish. So let's make a couple of more of those together. We yarn over, go under the bottom 2 loops of the previous stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, pull it up nice and even there, yarn over, pull through just that first one. So now that's the chain at the bottom of this stitch. So now we can yarn over and pull through all 3 to finish that half double crochet. Let's do one more. We yarn over, go under the 2 loops at the bottom of the previous stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull it up nice and even, pull up a little bit more yarn from my skein here, there we are, yarn over, pull through just that first loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. And you'll continue around until you have a total of 56 stitches, including that very first one. After you've worked all the way around, you don't want to join with a slip stitch. If I pull this around here, that's how you might normally work in the round. Instead, we're just going to continue building our way up. So let me make a couple more of these, and then I'll show you how that goes. Now you need to make sure that in your full-size bucket here, you do have 56 stitches in this round because we're going to be working evenly until we get down to the tentacles, and you need 56 stitches in order to get those 8 tentacles worked around there. Each of them require 7 stitches. So after you've finished your first round, what you're going to do is bring around that first stitch like so, but we're not going to join with the slip stitch. Instead, we're going to half double crochet right in that stitch. So I like to go ahead and yarn over and then bring that around. And then you can just insert your hook right in that first marked stitch there, right in the top. Yarn over and pull up your loop and finish that half double crochet. Now, this is going to be the new first stitch of the round. So we want to go ahead and move that stitch marker right on up. There we are. Then we simply continue to half double crochet around in each stitch. And we want to do that for a total of 9 rows. And then we can switch to the second color or keep going with that first color. Again, it's up to you how you want to customize it rather. For the written pattern, as I did it, you'll need rounds 1 through 9 here in your first color, and then you do rounds 10 through 12, again, just working even, a stitch in each stitch around in your second color, color B. After that, you don't break the yarn, you move on to making the tentacles. And again, I've outlined how to do those and demonstrated them in the Octopus Squish tutorial, which is linked in the blog post for this tutorial as well. You can see here on my little sample size, I've already gotten all the way around here for round 2. You can see how easy it is. Just pull this yarn right off this O'Go here. There we are. So when it's time to begin round 3 or 4 or 5, wherever you're at, you just, again, crochet right in that stitch with the stitch marker, and then always make sure to move it up. Otherwise, when you're working in a spiral like this, it can be very, very easy to lose track of exactly which stitch is the first stitch of the round and to know that you've actually completed all those rounds around. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. And what I want to talk about right now is this little end right here. You can see when we start working in this spiral with these foundation crochet stitches, we've got this little gap at the bottom of our first round, which is actually the top of our bucket. So we don't want to have that there. So what you want to do is take your original tail end and put it on a yarn needle here. You may need to use a larger yarn needle since this one is a big, thick yarn. Just got it through this one. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and take this tail and use it to just go ahead and sew closed right here along the bottom of the bag, or rather it would be the top of the bag, but the bottom of this first row. And if I just use my needle to go under that other side and then bring it back down in here and just pull that nice and tight, then I can weave in that end and the bottom is all closed up where we can crochet around and add our handle at the end. So this would be our first round that we just saw, and then you crochet up through there until you make that color change, which you can see here on the back of the bucket where I simply changed colors for those next few rounds, and then continue to use that second color, as I said, for the tentacles. And then, of course, before or after, however you want to do it, you make the underbelly, which is just a simple circle, as well as those tentacles again. When you match those together, then you can simply single crochet through both of those layers all the way around. I do recommend that you use your stitch markers to match up those pieces so that you can make sure to crochet evenly. That said, there's not a specific number of stitches. You're working to the sides of rows, so you can do it however looks good to you. The last thing you'll want to do is come back and add that handle to the top of your bag. So if I turn it around here, at that point we'll have everything made. All that's left is to add the handle. So we're going to add a round of half double crochet here, and then add our single crochet handle. Really wants to wave and say hi. Let's go ahead and add our handle together. Okay, so let's go back to our little swatch here. And here we've got our tiny little bucket. You can see here is where I left off, where I would have continued and made those little tentacles and things. But now we're back up at the bottom of our first row. These are the chains that we made when we were making our foundation stitches. So what you want to do is, if you can use your stitch marker to kind of get an idea of, or if your color change, make sure you want to put that in the back of your bag like you saw on my finished bag. Then we're just going to pick a stitch back here and rejoin with that same color. Or you could use a contrast color if you like. I'm going to chain one, and then I'm simply going to half double crochet in each stitch around. This gives us just a little bit more of an even top here. This creates a really nice sturdy edge to work into. And I really love how easy it is to work into these foundation stitches as well. When we made those little chains at the bottom, it left 2 loops for us to work right into for this round. So this round, the first round of the handles, is simply finishing off the bottom of this round and making it look a little bit neater here and getting ourselves set up. So for this one, you simply half double crochet, in each stitch around. And then at the end of this one, you will go ahead and join. You can do that with a sewn join or a slip stitch join, however you want to do it, but we are going to be finishing off. So the way I like to do it is to go ahead and not join with a slip stitch, but rather to cut my yarn and then use my yarn needle to do that same sort of sewn join that I demoed when we closed up that bottom of round 1. I find this just gives a little bit of a neater look than a slip stitch join, and it doesn't create that little lump right there. So again, I'm just going to put my yarn needle, under those top 2 loops there, and pull that nice and closed shut. And then I can just weave that end in along with the rest of them. So now that you've made that row, it is time to go ahead and add the handle. And I did just a 1 handle style for this bucket. If you wanted to do a different handle style or any style of handles, if you have questions about, I really recommend you check out my handle placement tutorial. Again, also available on YouTube and linked at the link in the description. What we want to do for this handle is mark out 4 stitches on either side at the top of our bucket. Now, this little sample here is probably pretty small to try and do that on. But what we want to do is find where you want the back of that bucket to be, kind of put your colored join, if you change colors, right about in the middle there, fold it flat, and then, like I say, find the 4 stitches on each side. And this is where your stitch markers are going to come in really handy again. So if I sort of squish it around here, I can see I've got 2 stitches right there. So I can put mark the stitches on either side. So I've got 4 marked on this side. Let me pull up another one here. There we are. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches marked on one side. There we are. It's kind of hard to get those marked without getting my fingers in the way. So then we just want to mark the 4 stitches on the opposite side. And we really want to make sure to check our work. And what I mean by that is make sure that you have the same number of stitches then in between those 2 handles. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 there. Oop. Fumbled my stitch marker. There we go. So if I've got 4 stitches marked on either side, I want to make sure I have the same number of stitches here and the same number of stitches here, just to confirm that our handles are evenly placed. So on our little sample here, I've got 3 stitches, it looks like here, 1, 2, 3, or actually I take that back, only 2 stitches on this side. And on this side, 1, 2, 3. I have 3 on this side. So this is a poor example because I have an odd number of stitches. Again, on your full-size one, you'll have 56 stitches, so you'll be able to mark those out really evenly. So again, on your full-size bag, just make sure you've got the same number of stitches front and back there, and of course, just 4 stitches marked on either side. Then what you're going to do is go ahead and join to one of those marked stitches. So here is where we finished off our previous rounds. So this would be the first marked stitch. So what we want to do is bring up our yarn again, whatever yarn color you want to use for the handles. I'm going to keep working here in our color A, our lightest color from this particular O'Go. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my yarn and simply join to that first marked stitch right there. If that stitch marker is in your way, you can go ahead and take that out for sure. So I'm just joining and chaining 1 here. I'm going to pull this stitch marker on out of my way. There we are. And then what we want to do is go ahead and half double crochet in each of these stitches. The first one, the one that was marked that we joined to, so there's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And you can single crochet these stitches if you prefer, but I went ahead and used half double crochets for these, and I found them to be a really great stitch for this. You just want, again, you want a really nice solid stitch. So we've got our 4 stitches made here. I've stopped in that second marked stitch there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that one out. I don't need that one right now. I'm going to chain 1, turn, and then half double crochet in each of those stitches across. So there's 2, 3, and 4. There we are. And then we continue to do that. I found that 23 rows gave the handle length I liked, but you can change it and add as many rows or subtract rows. Make that handle just as long as you'd like it to be for your purposes. We're just crocheting back and forth on rows until we have, the handle length we want. So I'm going to go ahead and do 1 more row here, I think. Let me pull up a little bit more yarn. So, forgot to yarn over first. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Nice quick rows. There we are. So after you've crocheted the number of rows you want for the length of your handle, give you a nice little handle for your basket or your bucket, then we are going to cut the yarn. And we want to leave a pretty good length this time because we're going to be using this end to sew to the other side. There we are. So I will go ahead and just pull that yarn right on through to finish that off, nice and secure. And then put this yarn end right back on my yarn needle. There we are. I find folding over that little edge sometimes makes it a little easier to get in there. So let me get these ends out of the way here so we can see what we're doing. There we are. So now you can see we've built up our strap or our handle to the length we want. And we've still got those 2 marked stitches on the other side. So what we want to do is we want to come over and sew this side of the handle to those marked stitches right there. So we're simply going to whip stitch them together. So since I ended on this side, I'll start with this stitch marker. If I had ended on that side, I'd start with that stitch marker. We do want to make sure, especially if you've got a really long handle, not to add any twists before you sew that on. We want to keep it nice and straight. So we find that matching marked stitch marker on the other side there, marked stitch, I should say. And we simply pull that yarn right in through. There we are for a whip stitch. And I always like to go back into that first stitch 1 more time, even though that end just kind of comes out of there. There we are. And then you can just pull those nice and tight. There we go. So we're just going to whip stitch the others together. We'll go into the second one here and the second one of the handle. Just make sure you go under both of those loops so that it's nice and secure. We'll do the third one. There we are. That little tail end's a little long. There we go. And then we've got our 4th one all marked out for us right there. So we know we're in the right spot. Now I'm on the outside of my bag, so I'm going to go ahead and send that right back in through that stitch 1 more time. And then I would go ahead and weave in this end and the other end as well. So we can remove those stitch markers. And once those ends are woven in, you've got the handle made for your bucket. Now, as I mentioned, you can really do these parts in just about any order. Again, you can see here was my color A that I worked into color B then, completed the tentacles with those. I made the underbelly with our darkest color, seamed them back together with the medium color, and added the handle. But if you wanted to add the handle first, however you like to do it, it's totally up to you. in order to figure out that handle placement. Just to go over that one more time here, again, I made sure that color change was in the back. When I put on my eyes, I made sure they were kind of centered over those two centered tentacles right there. And then I used those to help me lay it flat up here at the top. These really want to flip up, but I used that to help me lay it flat at the top here so I could mark out those 4 stitches on either side rather for our handle. So read through the full pattern, think about how you want to use that O'Go and in what order, and then you too can make your own Halloween monster candy bucket. And that's how to crochet the Halloween monster candy bucket. Please go to the link in the description where you will find both right and left-handed video tutorials, a link to the written pattern, and links to all the supplies you need. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.